How's it going, everybody? My name's Warner Fields with Fields of Profit. Today, I'm with my friend, student TJ, who's been crushing it on Amazon lately. He's got an awesome store. We're going to go ahead and break down how he was able to scale his Amazon business. But if you just want to kind of briefly introduce yourself, TJ, maybe let them know where you're at in your Amazon journey right now. We can kind of roll from there.
Sure. Thanks, man. Glad to be here. So I am on month 8. I'd say the store right now is doing roughly 66 to 70K, rolling 30, and I would anticipate it to probably crack 100 either this month or next.
That's awesome. Yeah. So in less than a year, hopefully that six-figure kind of a month mark. I've seen
60 days or less, it would be there.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So I guess kind of, going back a little bit, most people watching this video are, they're not selling $60,000 a month. Why did you get into Amazon? Like, there's a million different other things you could start right now. What stuck out to you about Amazon Arbitrage that seemed like a good business?
Sure. Kind of came out of life dealing a little bit of a lemon. So I was an analyst for 3 years and then sales for 12 and lost my job last year, which kind of stunk. Always wanted to be in business for myself. So I was working on, and still am, working on a startup in the healthcare space. But the ramp time for that to produce revenue was going to be a year plus. So in the meantime, especially while we're pressure testing the systems, I had some free time. Frankly, I don't know if I ever shared this, but I caught one of your YouTube videos, right? And I saw you just kind of analyzing a keep graph, and I'm like, oh, this is in my wheelhouse. Like, I understand sales, I understand products. Really, from a standpoint of what you're selling, it's a widget, and you can, with the 3 years of seller history, basically, if you're picking the right products, know roundabouts where you're going to end up a month from now. So that kind of got me into it and grew from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. To me, that's why it makes so much sense to do with like the used books or arbitrage like we're doing, because you can look on Amazon, you can pay $20 a month for Keepa, and you can know exactly how fast your stuff is going to sell. That's a privilege that you're not going to have with the the business you're working on in the background. People, if you're starting like a Shopify business, you have no idea how well it's going to do. With those Amazon products, it's really awesome to be able to see, this is exactly how much I might be able to make, kind of, if everything goes right, obviously. So kind of, going from there, like, getting into Amazon, everything's starting to click, kind of, especially when it makes sense, like with that past background. I've seen a lot of people who are like stock traders, like, get into it because Keepa is very similar and all that. Do you remember maybe how you found one of those first couple items? You remember what it was?
Yeah, sure. I remember exactly what it was. It was a storefront stocked product that dealt with, it was a supplement for animals and labor, I guess is the easiest way to put it. Hilarious, right? So again, it's a widget. Like, I am not in the veterinary space. I have no idea about it. But to your point, it's similar to trading stock. The biggest difference I see with this space versus that is, again, you've got a little bit less emotionality with the products that you're selling. And there's less giant market transitions. Like, if someone throws out a tweet and something tanks down, that doesn't really happen in the Amazon space. You're not going to take off to the moon overnight, and it's a lot of work. But you can turn money at 20 or 30% once you know what you're doing fairly profitably and regularly.
For sure, yeah. And you and I were even talking about this a little bit before the call. Everybody watching this video is probably wondering, like, how much time are you spending on the business? Nowadays, how much time did it take you to set up? Kind of all that good stuff.
Sure. For me and how I scaled this, I guess, quickly, a lot of time. Right. So I've basically been working this full time. I would say the first couple months, especially when I was doing everything from product sourcing to purchasing to prep, etc., it was roughly 50 to 60 hours a week, like working every single day, including weekends, for about $2,000 in profit a month. So yeah, it felt super good coming from a strong W-2 job to completely bust my butt to make way under minimum wage. But it pays off.
Yeah. Obviously not pulling in $2,000 a month anymore. Yeah, it's just that brick wall at the beginning. Like, if you guys are watching this, you've probably tried a little bit. If you're watching this video, it probably feels very, very difficult. TJ, everyone else I've talked to will tell you, like, that first month or two is not going to be easy. And that's why it's so profitable, is because not a lot of people can make it through that, kind of initial learning curve, right? So maybe what was something, obviously, finding those first couple products, what was that point where a couple months in things started clicking? Like, do you remember what dots you're able to connect to start figuring things out?
Yeah, sure. I'd say one of the best things I did, Warner, was thoroughly document all of my purchase decisions, like behind like what I'm seeing in the Keep It chart, buying the quantities that I'm buying. So a month later, I could go back, or when they sold through too quickly or didn't sell quick enough, I could learn those lessons. And I do it still today. I generally reprice daily just to make sure I'm catching all new products that are checking in. And anything that's not meeting expectation, I go back through and look and say, why did I buy this? What? So really early on, it's just about making a lot of small mistakes and learning from them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know if I've ever talked to anybody with that system. I'm sure you're going to be able to pick up a ton from that. I mean, you probably learned a lot of those lessons that you would have learned early on. But yeah, I love that. Those of you guys who are watching this video, especially month 1, month 2, like write down what you saw. Something I do is try to go back, especially on ASINs that we lost money on. We'll go back and I'll just zoom in and see what the keepa looked like when we bought it. And you can learn like, oh, sellers were increasing and I kind of took a gamble on it. That's why we don't take a gamble on those types of items. Yeah, that's awesome. So kind of, able to find those first couple of products, things are starting to click. You were talking about doing storefront stocking, and something you and I even been talking about, as you went from storefront stocking, do you do a ton of that still this day? Like, how are you sourcing a lot of products these days? You going manual?
Pretty much, like if I'm still sourcing product, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about later on, but if I'm still sourcing, it's manual. Just,
Cool.
I know sales when they're good. At this point, because I've been logging every single thing I bought and why I bought it and where I bought it from and how it performed, like I, kind of know where to look, when to look. And, frankly, for me, it's a little bit more fun, but definitely storefront when you're starting out to, even if you don't see something that's good now, right? Like just log it mentally. This person's selling this brand or this product. So, when you see it on a website, 3 months down the road, when you're doing more manual, hey, that's something worth looking into. I have a team now and I have them storefront stocking, pretty much every day or every other day whenever there's not a good sale going on.
Yeah, for sure. Let's just get into that then. So how many people you got on your virtual assistant team right now then?
4.
Awesome. So is that kind of a growth strategy? Do you need all 4 to be kind of where you're at sales wise? Like, how's that looking?
Oh no. Like, so relative to me setting up the business, right? Like I wanted to do everything to understand it. And I guess handed off prep at, 20,000 a month. I picked up my first VA when I was trending at, I think like 35,000 a month. I actually hit 50K that month. So I just wanted to make sure that I could do it. And I mean, we're doing 66 to 70 now. So I could probably comfortably hit that with 1. And frankly, we probably did because I brought the other 3 on in May. But the way I look at it is right now I am pretty inundated with the admin tasks of the store and like the back end running. And what I'm doing is spending the time driving the processes there and allowing them to get trained up as good as possible. So once I get a little bit more time, I can focus more on business development and open up new areas for them to source.
Yeah, that's awesome. And bringing on these new sourcing VAs, that kind of stuff, like what metrics are you looking for in those virtual assistants? That one VA obviously sounds like they were pretty good. A lot of people watching this probably, what standards should they be looking for?
I don't really judge by leads a day. I mean, like I like to see, a few leads a day, hopefully. Like some days I tell them, look, some days you're going to have 12 to 16 leads. Those are awesome days. And some days you're going to have 0. Sometimes it's multiple days where there's 0. Like I do that when I source and I'm pretty good at it now. So for me and for them, it's really about, can we spend, if I'm contributing everything possible to your leads, 10, 20, 30 grand a month on your leads, and they're rewarded and compensated on such.
Yeah, for sure. That's an awesome way to kind of look at it. We were talking a little bit as well, like what kind of compensation are you doing? You got any bonus plans, like that kind of stuff for your team?
Sure. So I have them kind of set up like we would be as sellers, right? Like where if, we're not doing great, I guess the one difference is they all have salary, which is good, whereas you and I don't.
Yeah.
But, when they're doing well and they all are starting to take off, like they have uncapped commissions, especially over certain amounts with escalators built in. So my goal, frankly, is for them to work as much as they'd like to, as long as they're hitting, the minimum metrics, and reward them for working more and bringing in better leads.
Yeah, for sure. We do the same thing, kind of profit sharing with the virtual assistants. It's just a great way to like align your incentives. Like you're talking about, like we've tried every incentive in the book, like, source as many leads as possible. If we spend $1,000 a day, but like profit is all that matters. And as long as everyone's incentives are aligned, like profit, that's kind of the big thing. It's awesome to be able to kind of start building that team. And it's going to be exciting to see kind of what that team looks like by Q4, probably rip some products there.
I'm excited. I guess the one thing I'd say relative to everyone with VAs is just remember like why you're doing this, right? Like I always wanted to, do my own thing, but I had the golden handcuffs until I was laid off. But like everyone wants to be their own boss because they want to manage their time. They want to be treated like an adult. So build your VA team with that same expectation. Don't treat them like you were potentially treated in past jobs where you're, monitoring their clicks per hour, et cetera. Like, set expectations, treat them like people as they are. They're awesome, and allow them to make a lot of money if they find you money.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's a lot of like weird attitudes towards kind of virtual assistants and stuff out there. So yeah, just, treating each other like adults goes super far with that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, being able to build the virtual assistant team, kind of working on the prep center, outsourcing a lot of your time. Was there a moment, going from not selling much at all to having this team now where, it was kind of that light bulb moment where it's like, oh, wow, I can make serious money on Amazon, maybe a really good product or, anything like that?
Yeah, really good product for sure help. I would say the month that I hit 5K, I want to say, like, I started seeing, and this was probably month 3 for me or something like that. I'd say like 3 or 4 grand in profit, which again, it's not a ton, right? It'd be hard to necessarily live off of that. But at the same time, it was double what I made the month before, and then I made 50 the next month and the profit was double what it was at 25. So, as you scale, your fixed expenses get smaller from a percentage standpoint and it keeps growing, especially once you learn how to manually source more effectively, where you're not just looking through a sale for 4 hours hitting your head against the wall. It gets more fun. Then you can teach it to teammates and free up your time to hopefully do more high value stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're not going to find a job where you can give yourself a 100% raise 2 months in a row.
Yeah, I mean that's sales, right? That's why I
Yeah.
always did it. Is the nice thing. Like if you're successful and the harder that you work, the more you make, and that's the cool thing about Amazon in this space. Now,
Yeah.
again, the downside is it's super hard, especially getting started. You still take your licks and learn lessons, but it can be rewarding as long as you're driven.
Yeah, for sure. Something you kind of touched on there a little bit as well. What was that kind of moment, where you knew you were ready to onboard that first virtual assistant?
Sure.
A lot of people jump in too early. I think you're even talking about that a little bit.
So it was really when I took a look at some of my classmates and podmates and teammates that had VAs and saw some of their success with leads. I was still growing at a pretty ready clip, but I was also realizing, just like I did when I offloaded prep, right? Like you start to feel like you are the cog that's slowing your business down. So, I figured, hey, maybe now is not perfect. Like, I sourced the 50 grand in profit, or not profit, I wish it was the 50 grand in revenue. Maybe I could do 70 solo, but you're spending 8 hours plus a day basically cracking at sourcing. And, my thought pattern was, if I can train this to some other people and have them focused on this, maybe I can figure out ways to diversify the business better and frankly have a life again a little bit.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing is creating a business, not a job.
Yeah.
And like when you're doing it solo, it's about a job. So for me, it's now we've expanded to 4 VAs. I've got an admin VA starting next week to solve my other problem of spending 4 to 5 hours a day doing that stuff. And then I'm basically freed up to do a lot more business development.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just being able to, buy your time back. Like something you're even talking about. Like I feel like a lot of us are talking like, how do I free up my time so I can spend more time on the business, right? Here's a crazy thought. How do I free up my time to not work? That's why we're running businesses. That's something I've been, working on myself this year. Yeah. So is there something that you think is like a common misconception that a lot of like, beginners especially might have about getting into Amazon?
Yeah, that it's easy or that it's passive. I mean, that's really, I think, kind of pushed around quite a bit. Instagram and YouTube, etc. It's definitely not. I think I said this earlier, but I never worked harder for the little amount of money that I made the first few months. And it definitely took several times, like the community and just Discord and dealing with other folks to make me stay in it. Like there's plenty of days where I woke up and I think I scaled fairly quickly saying, what the heck am I doing? But at the same time, keep your eye on the prize and you can get there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, I try to say the same thing. Like it's not going to be easy. Like it's challenging. Tons of free resources. You guys are in the right, YouTube channel, poke around, watch as much as you can, but it's not going to be easy for the first little bit. Super, super worth it. Something you even touched on a little bit there is the community aspect. I like how kind of the community kind of kept you accountable, like kept you in the space almost. What would you recommend for kind of a new seller? How should they go out and, make a couple friends to kind of, talk to in the Amazon space?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think all of your videos basically end with you pointing at like a Discord thing, right? Like that you've got a free Discord. Like that's obviously the place to start. It's a massive community. Generally what I'd say, if you're serious about it, and I mean, maybe we can touch in a bit about starting up and like what that's like. But like, if you're serious about it, do the roadmap. Like, frankly, I did it pretty much right away. You get a little bit more gated community. It's smaller. It's easier to integrate with folks. And frankly, you'll get your value. I mean, the value's there in the videos 100%, but like it's there tenfold with just having a reference whenever you need it to have a quick answer. Because when you're starting up, everything is confusing as heck.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate the vouch there. That's been coming up a little bit as, being able to network and even in, not even in my community, like go find a smaller community that's going to be like just, more focused people. Like that's kind of what the roadmap, being able to find people who are just a little bit more in the weeds, like really understanding things. So yeah, just jump in those Discord groups. Something I always say is like, go just answer somebody's question that they drop in, public chat, slide into the DMs, just start the conversation that way. A lot of times, start making friendships. What kind of benefits have you seen in your business? You talked about the accountability. Is there, leads, anything like that you've, been able to benefit from just from having a couple Amazon connections?
Oh yeah. 100%. Like leads, I get, solid like loops to run and leads probably weekly from the community, and, potentially even more valuable. Like you see some of the costly mistakes that others share that you can avoid. The other thing is it's just, especially when you're new, right? Ideally you're starting this when you've got still a job, right? To kind of get going and find a step away point. But like when you're stepping out and you're doing this solo, like, it can be lonely, right? I mean, you're basically cranking through product every day. So it's awesome to have just some folks to chat with and to kind of point you in the right direction, daily until you start building a team.
For sure. Yeah, it's something I'm always harping on. Like, go out there. It's so much harder to be alone in Amazon. Like, even if it's a challenge for you to put yourself out there, I know it's a challenge for me, probably a challenge for you as well, TJ, to like just get out of your comfort zone a little bit. But it's so much worth it. It's so much harder to be a lone wolf in Amazon.
There's no reason for it,
Yeah, exactly.
to pursue that way. I mean, literally at all.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so kind of going back to the beginning of your journey, obviously a lot of beginners watching this video probably want to avoid some of those pitfalls you might have been talking about there. Is there anything early on in your journey that you would have changed, maybe done a little bit differently?
Tough question. I'd say looking back, I don't know if I could have taken a much different path to get to where I'm at now, at least with my capabilities when I got started. Like, again, I understood Keepa fairly quickly, but sourcing was completely foreign to me. So I, fully credit the coaching and the roadmap program and the community really with helping me get up to speed quickly. I think, like I said earlier, like mistakes are valuable. Just make sure they're not too expensive. The biggest thing really, I guess, is just to celebrate milestones and victories. Like for me, it was very easy. Like, oh, I hit 20K. And I thought that would be awesome. Whatever. I was already focused on 40. When I hit 40, I was already focused on 50. And now I'm focused on 100. So I'm definitely going to go out drinking at 100 to force myself to do this. But, make sure that you're celebrating the wins and not just keeping your head in the grind.
Yeah, I love that. Even at small scale, like spoiler alert, even at 250,000, 300, 400K a month, it still is like, all right, how do I do the next one? Like it's kind of the human nature, I suppose. So yeah, I love that. If you guys are watching this, you got $1,000 in sales, like celebrate that a little bit. Obviously keep working on your skills, but that's an awesome achievement. Like not a lot of other people can, go out there, start a business, make $1,000.
And you never know what everyone else is starting with either, right? Like how much money they're forcing through their business, what their profit margins are, the product they're selling, etc. So, if you're happy with your success and you're happy with your margins, and if it's $1,000 a month one, that's awesome. I guarantee the majority of Amazon sellers aren't doing that. I mean, I think I only did like 7,000 month one, and I spent probably 12 on product, so it wasn't a super awesome month for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So kind of, going into the future from here to hit that 100K month, sounds like you're pretty well, kind of equipped there, but what's holding your business back from, $100,000, $200,000 a month?
Oh, yeah, sure. It's time.
Mhm.
That's always it right now, right? Like I would love to be sourcing full time again and not doing any of the admin stuff. So that was like the easiest next thing to fix. And, again, you'll feel it, right? Like when you're doing this stuff, you start to feel when something's a burden, like when sourcing is more valuable than prepping, even though you're maybe saving a little bit of money, then you get a prep center. Like when you feel you can teach sourcing to other VAs effectively and build a team and they're multiplying what you'd be earning by yourself, you get VAs, right? So for me, admin VA next, and then likely a buyer sometime towards the end of summer to like early fall, something like that.
Cool. Yeah. It's pretty good, kind of roadmap laid out. It's pretty similar to the team we've been able to build. So hopefully it'll go well for you.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
So yeah. Yeah. So are there kind of, we talked about it a little bit, but, long term, 2-3 years from now, what are kind of the long-term vision for your Amazon business?
My goal this year was to hopefully hit consistent 6-figure months. So I feel pretty good about that, doing that earlier than expected, but with far more work than expected. Long term, I'd like to get to the 200 to 300 a month and then diversified from there. When I have more time to focus on like those new sources, like I'll spread out, maybe do OA, maybe do some private label. Like the skill set that you learn doing this can be applied to a lot of those spaces. So
yeah, for sure. Arbitrage is a great place to make a ton of money, make a ton of cash flow, or, take that cash flow and put it into, wholesale, private label, and all that other fun stuff you can kind of do.
A lot of people obviously like there's that kind of drive in the community right now for wholesale, but really you could hit 100K a month quicker doing this. I mean, like you don't have the massive capital requirements. You can use credit cards if you're comfortable. Like your sources are pretty much always available. Like you've got far more products to access, like without a high barrier to entry. So yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So just to kind of wrap us up here, appreciate you, hopping on the channel, sharing some value. If you had a 30-second soapbox pitch to the seller who's, they've got $0 in sales, they've sold their first couple items, what kind of, 2 or 3 action steps should they take to go, kind of really level this thing up?
All right. Well, first thing is don't tank my listings when you finally do sell something, please. Second, like if you're interested, set up a seller account, buy a month of SellerAmp, a month of Keepa, and just poke around for a little bit. If you enjoy it, like if you can at least see that, even if you don't find something you can sell, if you're gated, don't worry about it, right? Like just try and like see the space, buy a course, like set yourself up right, do the roadmap course, get in the community, and from there just off to the races. Like you don't need a lot of tools. SellerAmp will do it, Keepa will do it, and then be cool right away probably would be what I'd say. And that's it.
Cool. Yeah, it's a good roadmap, especially if you got a little bit of capital, like investing like 1,000%. I'm investing in shortcutting my learning curve next time. So yeah, keep it simple. Do that kind of stuff if you can. Yeah. So we kind of talked about it in this interview a good amount as well. Just the value of going out there, making connections. If anybody watching this video wants to go, DM you, maybe they're similar sales. If you guys want to hop on Zoom call together, that kind of thing, where can they find you?
My Twitter be at TJ_Ike. That's EICH.
Nice. Yeah, we'll get that link down in the description. Go drop a follow. TJ's why I told him to drop a thread, so you guys can go see if he if he shared his journey.
Accountable to hitting 100K in 60 days or flame.
Exactly. So go check him out over there, guys. Start making connections in the community. Really appreciate you hopping on the channel, TJ. I hope you guys got a ton of value out of watching this video. If you did, please feel free to add some of that value back to my business. Hit that subscribe button. Also, let me know if you guys have any comments, questions, anything like that. Super happy to answer those down below as well. But I really appreciate you guys watching this video, and I will see you next time.